Hey, Fanboy Nation.
This is your pal Daffy Duck, and you're watching.
We're watching Fanboy.
A fanboy, etc.
Fanboy Nation.
Dot, I assume Tom.
Lee Robinson, how are you today?
Hey, I'm doing great. Happy Monday. It's good to be here.
Happy Monday. Great to talk to you. There's a cast of heavy hitters. This is the third reiteration of A League of Their Own that we're getting. We had the movie. We had the original series in the early 90s, and now we have a different interpretation coming about. So congratulations in being in round 3.
Thank you. Super excited. So excited, grateful, and really proud of round 3.
This series, it takes a different turn. In the original film, they touched upon various sexual aspects of it, lesbians within the league, women that were married but might have had side things going on. I don't want to give too much away because we want people to watch the series if they're interested in seeing it. As I mentioned in the pre-interview, the one issue I have with A League of Their Own is that they just keep focusing on the peaches. Where's the rest of the league?
Right. That's a great question. I think that maybe some additional seasons, that's pitch, plug would be a great opportunity to maybe see some more of those dynamics. But with this first one, I think that, so much of the original, and I'm a huge fan of the original. And for this version of this story, we just really had an opportunity to tell a few more stories, right? To go a little bit deeper into some of the voices that may not have been heard, that were happening at that time, but we didn't have a chance to hear from them. So I think with this first iteration, it's important to set up the peaches, set up the story, do that deep dive into everyone else. And I think that maybe season 2 and 3 and 7 and 20, we can do some more work around some of those interactions and relationships between the other teams, I think. So
let's eventually get us to the World Series.
Yes, let's do it. I'm here for it.
You yourself are a trans actor, female to male, which is something we don't often hear about. Typically we hear about it going the other way. There's the sports controversy and the issue with the sports thing, and that's its own subject. How has it been for you when people find out that you've transitioned? Is there a different way that they treat you? Is it something that they know that you identify as a male, you've gone through the hormone therapy to become a male, but somewhere in the back of the mind they still treat you as a female? Or how has the reaction been to you, not on set here particularly because this is a very big set, but in other projects? Right.
This is a great question. And I'm going to try to answer the question, but there's something that I also want to add to this conversation.
Yes, please.
And that is that there are many ways, and this is something that folks might not know, right? And so this is great. This is a good part of the conversation. There are many different ways that folks can identify as trans and transgender, trans men, trans women. There are various stages. And for me personally, I identify as transgender, a trans-identified person, gender non-conforming and non-binary. And within these different identities, not everyone goes all the way through with transitioning, right? So there are some folks who are, also in the middle who may not go through with the different surgeries or may not go through with the hormone therapies and still identify as transmasculine, may identify with another way of expressing their gender, etc. So I always want to kind of also talk about the fact that there are some folks who have transitioned fully and are living as, like in my case, female to male, are living as men in this world. There are also other folks who have maybe started the hormone but haven't had a surgery and transitioned completely through. And there are other people who may not have had any of that, but they may have had top surgery or binding and identify as trans and transmasculine. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there as a part of the conversation. And for myself personally, I think to your question, you were asking if I remember correctly, you were asking like, how do people treat you, when they understand that you're trans or that you're on that spectrum, how has that been for you? I think that's what you were asking.
Specifically, because you can't answer for everybody else.
Right, absolutely. I've had a pretty, to be honest, I'll go from like chronologically, it's always been challenging being an actor. It's been challenging being an actor and, trying to submit myself for different roles. Things have opened up tremendously right now. There are a lot of roles for people like me. There's a lot of language. There's like transgender. There's, even trans men, like specific calls in casting for non-binary, for, gender non-conforming. There's a lot more language than there used to be for someone like me. So before this language was a part of it, I would just submit for male roles and hope that, folks were open to gender blind casting. And I would communicate that in my submissions, this is how I identify. If you're open to gender blind casting, I would love to audition. Now, that landed me roles and that didn't, so it was a challenge to really try to put myself into, situations or try to audition or submit myself for things before this industry had a better understanding of the language and the different identities. But now that there is more language and there is a little bit more of an understanding, we still have a long way to go. There are more roles for me. There are more roles for me to submit for. I've even had audition for a lead male role, right? And the director was like, yo, this is what I thought I wanted for this role, and Lee's perfect. So, let's go down that road and see where that takes us and see, how we can bring that voice into the scenario. So it's been challenging to start. It was challenging to start. It's a little less challenging now because there's access. There's a little more access than there was before. Again, we still have a long way to go, but at least when you look at breakdowns and you look at, casting calls, you see some of this language, and it's a lot different to see that language than it was when we didn't have that language.
On the show, because people have yelled at me, you're ignorant. And I'm like, ignorant is not a pejorative, you moron. Ignorant means ill-informed. And yes, I'm ill-informed, so I'm asking to find out.
Yeah.
So I'm asking to find out. The one that confuses me the most is the term non-binary. And the reason why it confuses me more than anything is because you are here. You are a binary entity. So that's the term non-binary confuses me when you are physically present on Earth as a human being. How does that term fit into this that I can understand non-binary in this context versus binary as an actual reality and physical manifestation?
Yeah, that's a great question. So non-binary, just real simple, because it's all complicated. It's all complicated, right? I mean, we all are at different levels of understanding the terms. Sometimes I feel like there's a new term every year or every week, and then I'm also like stepping in it because I don't know what the new term is, and then folks are like, Lee, here's what it means. And I'm like, great, thank you. So I think that the best case scenario is that we try to learn from each other and that we have patience with each other and we ask questions. So I appreciate you asking this question. I think it's important. I want to also encourage folks to Google things if they have questions or they don't know. But when I talk about non-binary, I'm talking about the binary of male and female. So, like most people, maybe I'm a male, I'm a female. I fit into one of those or the other. And for non-binary, for me, that means that I don't fit into either of those, or I fit into both of them, right? So it's kind of like it's challenging the one or the other. For me, it is, the non-binary. Some folks may also say gender non-conforming, which means that I may not conform to, if I was born a woman in this world, I may not conform to, how women move through the world, dress, that's more around like gender expression, et cetera. But this question about non-binary, that's what it means to me.
Okay. See, because people are just like, you're ignorant, and then they leave it at that. And I was like, that doesn't help me one way or the other.
Yeah.
You're ignorant on the subject. Inform me so I can sit there and make a rational decision of like, okay, I get it. Okay, I still don't get it. But either whatever, or the people that are like, I'm just not going to agree with it, so who cares? Whatever it is. I just like, let me find out what it actually means without being called called in. Because I didn't.
Exactly. And some people I do a lot of this work like for a living. I also have an organization. I started my business and it's just around like education. It's around bias and discrimination, whether it's around sexuality, gender identity expression, race, class, whatever, like teaching us teaching folks how to talk about these things and how to listen to each other, right? Because when we're not talking, we're not listening, we're not moving forward. So that's a lot of work that I do, is inviting conversations, right? Whether it's, like helping people find the language to talk to each other, or even encouraging folks, hey, instead of asking that person of color, that Black person, what it's like or what this definition means, or even a trans person, instead of asking, look it up, do some Googling, right? Because that person might be like, hey, yeah, I'm open to tell you. But that person may also be like, it's not my job to educate you, right? So that is my job. I feel like most of the time that is what I do in the world. So I'm fine with that. But I also like to encourage folks to utilize other resources like Googling, like Google non-binary and gender. There's all types of different resources out there that we can get a better idea of what it is and kind of think about it like, okay, what does that mean to me? I've had so many times where we talk about pronouns and someone's like, well, I don't have pronouns. And I'm like, okay, think about it if you did have pronouns. Well, I don't really think about it. Okay, so you don't have to think about it. That's okay. Like going deeper into the way we are with language and positionality. So, yeah.
Fair enough. It was just something that I was like, no one has ever explained to me what non-binary is. You're here. And
I appreciate that.
You being physically here as a binary entity, not knowing that it was binary towards one gender or the other.
Yes. Yeah. And again, I would encourage, I think sometimes Googling with different words, like binary, non-binary, and gender identity, non-binary and gender expression. And there's a lot out there. So, but I really appreciate you asking, because we don't know until we ask, right? And it's important. So.
What's the old thing? Closed mouths don't get fed.
Right. Exactly.
So let's go back to the series because, we had to clear the air on certain things. So people in the beginning can't say, I don't understand what this means. I don't know what that.
Got you.
Let's get it out there. Let's get it out of the way. Bertie, you get to
Bertie
on the series.
All right. Great question. When my manager sent me told me about the audition for Bertie, when she was going to submit me for it, she ran it by me and was like, this is going to be great. I'm going to submit you for this. It's going to be fantastic. And I was like, let's go. And I think during that time I was in the process of, finishing up. I was in 2 episodes, of the show 20s, with Lena Waithe. And I was in the process of wrapping up. I think we were heading into maybe the second episode that I was in. And my manager was like, all right, you got an audition. Here are the sides. Get it done and get it back. As soon as I heard about the show, I was like, wow, I love the original and what's happening, thinking about what was represented in the original and what wasn't. I was really curious. I was curious about someone like me, what is this role that folks are calling for? And when I got the sides and the character description for Bertie, I fell in love immediately. It's like it just went right into my heart. I knew that I wanted this role so badly. So went through the audition process. It was quite a long process, went through the audition process, went through the callback process. I had a chemistry read, and it was just a long process. And just when I was like, oh no, actors do that. When the process is really long and you haven't heard or you go into that place. And then I got the call that we were going to do it. So I was so excited. And from that moment, I really just started thinking about who Bertie is in the world. A lot of that development was there already, right? In the script and, the character, description and who Bertie was for the writers. And there was also a lot of room for me to step into that role, bring in my own history, my own research, my own commonalities and experience walking in the world like Bertie. So it was just from that moment, it was just the building of Bertie. I had different acting coaches that I worked with, either for the audition and then for the scenes that we were shooting. And the more and more I worked with Bertie, the more and more something new is revealed about Bertie. So Bertie is a lifelong thing, right? I relate to Bertie so much on so many levels. And what was so deeply powerful about it was that I was going to have an opportunity to breathe life into this voice from this time that we hadn't heard, that was possibly shoulders that I'm standing on, right? So it became this very personal journey, to breathe life into Bertie, to be as authentic, and respectful and honor who Bertie was and who Bertie is.
Of the time, Jim Crow laws, racism, and people. Here's the problem that I see with the far left and the far right. The far left will view America has never been good. It's always been a horrible, horrible place, and we're still a horrible place.
Okay.
The far right will sit there and go, all right, we tried to fix it, get over it. And there has to be that middle of, look, we were really horrible people before because that's the way the law was and that was the mentality. We're evolving and we're continuing to grow. Things aren't perfect, but they're getting better.
Right.
And how do we reach that middle ground with that, especially when the show hits these topics hard, because you have to show how nasty it was in the South in the 40s and 50s.
Yeah.
And remind people that today,
yeah.
And especially, you and I both fall under the people of color category. And
right.
I really hate the phrase people of color because we're still getting called colored people.
This is flipped.
Yeah, you just change the words around. Doesn't mean it's better. Yeah.
Yes.
And my parents are immigrants, and I know what they went through. And having one parent that's lighter skin and one parent that was darker skin, and the way they treated my father versus the way they treated my mother, because his pigmentation was more olive than my mother's.
Right.
I see that even though we're the same exact ethnicity, same exact language, same exact religion, everything, but because of that, just the way it went. And so, how does that play into all of this as well? Because, we fall into that category, but we also realize that it is still better than what it was 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, and in this case, 80 years ago in the series.
Yeah, okay. That's a great question. First of all, thank you for sharing that with me. I'm always very interested in people's stories and people's, like where we come from and how we connect. So I appreciate you sharing that with me. I think that two things. I think that the writers did a really great job of showing those things, right? Like the trauma, the hard things, the pain, the suffering, with all the characters, whether it was the scene in the bar where the bar gets raided, they are hitting it on different levels, what it was to be like, the experience of being Black, the whole thing around the crab, like the day where they were trying to get that and it was so important. And they also show a lot of joy. And that's something from the very beginning was the conversation. We're going to talk about hard stuff. It's going to be hard. And we also want to make sure that we show as much joy as possible because it's important to show both because we can exist in both of those places, right? Things can be hard and we can also find the joy and resilience and connection and family and love in those things, in those scenarios. So I think that was a huge underlying current that the writers and creators are like, let's make sure, let's do this. And I think we were all working together to make sure we were embodying those moments. I think to your question with how do we continue to hold those histories, but also acknowledge that things are different and like things might be a little bit better. I mean, if we really feel like they are, to be honest, I think that
I wouldn't exactly say better, but getting better.
Getting better. Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's because let me just say this one thing and then I want to say something about that. I think that these types of conversations and the visibility and the questions being asked and like us having this conversation and then this being printed and then folks reading that and being able to partner that with, like the show and then their conversations that they're maybe having and then the conversations that are happening around it. I think that is how we continue to make sure that we're talking about history and then make sure that we're acknowledging that things are changing so we're not repeating ourselves, right? And that we are like kind of also acknowledging that joy. And I have to say that it's interesting how people are receiving this show. I've read a lot of different reviews. A lot of people love it. A lot of people are really excited about it. And I want to just say, if you love it and you're excited about it, review it. You know what I'm saying? Thank you for supporting it. And there are a lot of things I'm seeing out there that are very angry at the fact that this show would talk about the lives of Black and Black people brown people, gay and lesbian people, trans people in this way. And I've been really interested in, like kind of thinking about, what that's about. And it's just been really interesting to see that. It's been really interesting to see that. And that continues to make me, like when we were just now saying things are getting better, that's when I pause. I'm like, yeah. And I don't know if that's applicable to this conversation or even appropriate, but it's just been really interesting to see that, because my hope with this show, and I've said this from day one, is that people watch it, they're moved, maybe they talk in their homes after an episode about, wow, I didn't know that happened. I had an amazing conversation with my parents who watched the whole show. They're so excited. They live in Kentucky, and one of the scenes was so moving for them. They were like, that was unbelievably moving. And wow, I think I knew that happened, but I didn't, to see it was something different, so I've hoped that this show has some influence and impact. And I've also been able to see, the different things that folks are having to say about this show. And it is just really, it's been really interesting. It's been really interesting.
I like that. I'd rather get hit with the slur.
Let's see it.
Oh, you're the person I don't want to talk to, and then keep moving.
Right.
Versus having a conversation and then slowly dissecting. Wait a minute, it's all good. I just wasted 45 minutes talking to you.
Let me out of here. Get away.
Now I get it. This isn't fun anymore. Where at first, oh, you just hit me with that. Cool. That was 3 minutes of my time. Better than 45 minutes. Let's go.
Yeah, totally. And it's like, I can't stop reading them because it's important. It's important that we know what the conversation is. It's important that we know what the climate is. It's really valuable. And for me, it makes this work even more important. It makes this show it's so important. And I'm so incredibly, I almost said the F word, freaking proud to be a part of this show. I can't articulate that enough. And I knew it was going to be a great show, and it's a great show. I'm really proud to be a part of it. Yeah.
We'll let a little bit of bias slide in there because,
Oh, just a little bit.
Check cleared. We got to let the bias slide.
Yes, we got to, just a tad bit, just a little bit.
Rosie O'Donnell returns. She's the bar owner in this. She was in the original film. You have Nick Offerman, Darcy Carden, who I told to her face I have a crush on her. And it's a romantic crush. It's just how brilliant of a comedic actress she is that I'm like, my God,
brilliant.
I'm in love with you for this.
Brilliant.
My husband gave me a weird look, and I was like, oh, I'm not trying to steal your wife. Don't worry.
I'm sure it was worth the weird look, though. You know what I'm saying?
It was worth the weird look because she's that good. Especially the first thing I ever saw her in was The Good Place.
Yeah.
So, there was that, and then you're a talented performer as well, and then Nick knows that deadpan, straight face and everything else that goes with it. How at certain times, yes, there are the heavy topics, and then there's the levity of the humor in there. How difficult is it to keep that straight face and not break when an ad-lib line comes in from either them or Rosie or whomever?
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I didn't expect that coming. Now we need 6 more takes of this because we can't.
Right. That's a great question. Yes, this cast is amazing. This cast is amazing. It's just to be in their presence. It's just, I'm a big Broad City fan. I'm a big, so Abby, I'm a huge fan of Abby's and just everyone in this show. And a lot of my scenes were with, Max. I played with Shantae. And, there were definitely moments that either I put my hat on wrong, and that's trying to be a dramatic exit and my hat fell off or something. Or someone, said something funny. It was all good. You know why? Because we were there, and every one of us, in these roles and these conversations and this subject matter that's really hard, right? That's really intense. And so for those moments that were light, all those moments were welcome. You know what I'm saying? And that's just, for me, that was just a whole part of the thing, because we were all there believing in this thing, putting our heart and soul into it. And when those moments came that were like, Lee's hat just fell off, Bertie's trying to leave and be dramatic and their hat is turned the wrong way, were also moments of just releasing and laughing and being in each other's company. And I think that deepened our chemistries on camera, on set. And it just made it like it was a super like open and welcoming set. We can be in all those places at once. We can be holding those serious moments. We can be laughing and loving each other and loving those moments and the work that we're doing. So it was all good. It was a lot of fun. There was a lot of baseball.
So we do have to ask this.
Okay.
Minor league, if it was majors, I would be sitting in the booth somewhere getting ready this afternoon, but.
Right.
We got to put you on the spot at this point.
Oh man, seriously? With peaches, of course. What kind of question is that?
I go major league right now, in game. We're 2/3 deep in Major League Baseball right now. The games are almost up.
I mean, I like the Yankees. I lived in New York City, so I'm a Yankees fan. But yeah, my sport was basketball. I was a basketball player back in the day. So, it was funny. We did a League of Their Own celebrity baseball game over the weekend in LA. And, we took over EW's, Instagram Live and myself and I just took it over. They let me take it over and it was great. It was fun. And I just reported from that all day long on their Insta Live. But to my horror, I was told that I was going to be playing third base. And I was like, wait a minute, shouldn't I be out there somewhere in the field just like on the camera and playing? No, I was on third base. So I learned a little bit about baseball over the weekend and I was coached thoroughly on not to stand on the base, step to the left and back. So I learned a little bit about baseball, but I have more respect for the sport after being a part of this process and, just this story and it's reignited my excitement to like, okay, so I like the Yankees. What does that mean? Let's become a real Yankees fan. Get in there, get in the dugout, listen, watch the games, become one of those fans. So yeah, that's probably a team that I really like and I'm going to jump in a little bit more as a super fan. Still New York, man. I lived in New York and I just love New York City. I love California, but New York is like, I'm always a fan. So, yeah.
All right. We'll let you have the liberty.
Okay. Appreciate it. I mentioned a few of those games when I lived there. They're great. They're a lot of fun. So, yeah.
The important thing is you're having fun and your career is on an upward trajectory.
Yes. Blessings. Grateful. Absolutely.
What would you like to tell younger actors coming up, actors and actresses? I like the formality of both.
Yeah, yeah.
Because just to be lumped in as one kind of isn't fair to everybody. Plus, actors get more letters. So,
this is true.
Comedian, you get more letters. Actress, you get more letters. It takes a lot of characters to spell your stuff. So it's better.
Self-identify, exactly. Yeah,
we still that's the more modern term to use. Anybody, immigrant actors, anybody that's coming up that has that self-doubt of, well, I don't fit into X category, so I will never be Thor, or I will never be Wonder Woman, or I will never be, X type of character.
Totally.
Like to tell those?
I would tell them, I always write these notes down. I would tell them a couple of things. I would tell them to be yourself. Be yourself, work on your craft, and just dive into what you're doing, right? But show up as yourself because you are valuable, you are important, and even though sometimes we're not sure if we fit into categories and if folks are seeing us or looking for us, just do your part, submit, be really good, and be yourself. I would also say to support each other, right? Find your tribe, find the people who are like you and who inspire you and connect with them, and then be that for someone else, right? Be available for someone else to call or to check in and to be supported by you. And thirdly, create your own work, right? Create your own work. We all have times that we want to see ourselves on this screen, see ourselves in this story, and we all also have stories. So if you can create that work, right? But I would just, keep working, be yourself, show up, know who you are, know the industry, and just keep showing up as yourself, because your time will come, right? Whether it's you creating your own work or getting a break or, supporting other people, just keep showing up. Keep showing up.
Congratulations on being Bertie in A League of Your Own, which is currently streaming on Amazon Prime Video. Where can we find you on social media if we want to connect with you?
You can find me on Instagram. Just look me up. Hold on a second. You can look me up. Just look up Leah Robinson. Lee Robinson. It's spelled with an A, Lea Robinson. And as well as my Instagram, my handle is, I know I should know, but hey,
You have to Google yourself.
I had to check it out because I recently changed it. And it is at LE_Robinson_. So LE_Robinson_. That's where you'll find me. So come on through and say hi.